Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I am doing a character study of Iago in memory of Gilbert Gottfried. A quick thing, officially I am still on hiatus from the podcast, but I'm taking a quick hiatus from that hiatus to do this tribute to Gilbert Gottfried because I'm just so sad to hear about this news of his passing. And similarly, when Robin Williams passed away, my first thought went to Genie from Aladdin, and because that's just so seminal in my childhood. And as you know, I've said this so many times, Aladdin is my all-time favorite. It's really my all-time favorite movie. I haven't seen any other movie as much as I've seen Aladdin. I've seen it well over 200 times throughout my childhood, and it has such a special place in my heart. No other movie gives me such an emotional response the way Aladdin does, even all these years later. So, and it is turning 30 this year too, which is crazy how much time flies by. And I think I'm just going to talk about Aladdin again. Like, instead of replaying the episode, I think I'm just going to do a new episode about Aladdin and just talk about other stuff about the movie because I just love it that much. But similarly, when Bob Saget passed earlier this year, I did an episode discussing Full House. But it's funny because similarly with Gilbert Gottfried, how they're well known for these childhood staples because even Scott Weinger being part of both of those worlds with Aladdin and with Full House, that through our childhood these characters are so near and dear. But then Gilbert Gottfried himself was more so known with his comedy. His comedic style is very raunchy, very dark comedy. I've been watching just a bunch of videos with Gilbert Gottfried, just a bunch of clips of him doing the Comedy Central roasts and just random clips of him in various movies and just various random bits of him doing some stand-up, which was so funny. And there was one funny thing that I hadn't seen. It was him doing a morning talk show to promote his, when he was on tour at the time, and also promoting he had a podcast too, and so he was just promoting that. But he just was doing this whole thing going on and on about saying how he and one of the women on the show would just get together and have disgusting sex, and he was going on, and the two women were dying laughing the entire time, and I was crying laughing watching it. It was so funny because he would just go all in on the joke, so hilarious. And of course he was known for his grating voice, which I'm sure, as you know by now, was a stage voice. His real voice was much more subdued. There was also a documentary about him released back in 2017, simply titled Gilbert. He was also really popular on Cameo, which, if you're not familiar with Cameo, it's just a website where you can purchase a video shout out from a celebrity, from an actor. And so he had done over 12,000 cameos. And I never actually have bought one yet, but what you can do is you can search for different shows or different actors and anything and see if they're available. So I would type in stuff and saw Gilbert Gottfried at the time. This was a couple years ago, during quarantine, that stuff. But what's cool is that you could watch some of them, and now the page has been taken down, but I guess maybe the videos will be archived, who knows. But one of them, he was obviously so hilarious, but one of them made me die laughing, and it's still stuck in my memory. It's just so ridiculous of him roasting someone, saying, "Oh, I see you like video games, so that must mean you've never gotten laid in your life." Just so ridiculous and so hysterical. Also, similarly with Bob Saget, Gilbert Gottfried was considered to be one of the people who told the raunchiest, most hilarious versions of the Aristocrats joke. I'm sure you could find it on YouTube. I watched it years ago. It's so filthy, so graphic, so funny. Oh my God. And also another hilarious video I love is a video from years ago of Gilbert Gottfried reading excerpts of 50 Shades of Grey. Again, so hysterical. So I recommend those if you haven't seen them. So funny. So despite being known for also his voiceover work as well, he of course will always be remembered as just a truly hilarious comedian. But in his voiceover work, besides Iago, of course, he was then the Aflac Duck, but he was eventually fired for that because of jokes he had told at the time. And he was also on, which I did vaguely remember the show, like I vaguely remember it, Cyber Chase on PBS. He played like a bird in that too, like a, I don't know what the, whatever, the purple bird. And he was also on The Fairly Odd Parents. He voiced Dr. Bender, the dentist, and his son Wendell. Is this your ball on my lawn and your ankle in my trap? Like, you know. But so, it's just so funny. But to talk about, of course, Iago, his iconic role in Aladdin. And what's funny is that I learned a couple of things that I didn't mention at the time when I discussed Aladdin in terms of the original idea for the character of Iago, who first off is actually named after Iago from Othello by William Shakespeare, so he's named after that villain. And originally, though, the idea for Iago was going to be that he was going, like, it was going to be like the reverse of how you have Jafar as like the calm one and Iago as like the brash one. It's going to be reversed, where Iago was going to be this really calm and actually kind of like a butler type character, very deadpan, and then comparing that with, it would have been Jafar as like this manic, unhinged character. But then instead they decided to reverse that, which was definitely the right call. I mean, I always find it interesting hearing about the inception of characters and how things change over the course of a production and everything. But with Iago, they had wanted Gilbert Gottfried based on a small part he had in Beverly Hills Cop 2. So how random is that? That's too funny. And also similarly with Robin Williams, they encouraged Gilbert Gottfried to improvise, and apparently they had to remind him every once in a while, like, Gilbert, this is a family film. So I can only imagine the outtakes of him voicing Iago with any improvised lines. I'm sure it's absolutely hysterical. Oh my goodness. But, because his grating voice is just, forever in our minds, like you think of Iago, you think of that voice. It's just so, like, you crack up just thinking about it. So that really is amazing. And Iago's one of those characters that I love so much more now as an adult. As a kid, the stuff I found funny, I guess, was the slapstick stuff with Iago, but also I liked the part like with the crackers, like, I'll stuff the cracker down his throat, haha, like, that stuff. Like, oh god, those moldy, disgusting crackers. And like later in the movie when he's jamming the crackers in the Sultan's face. So ridiculous. But so what I love about Iago is that, when he's introduced in the movie, when he's squawking, the lamp, geez, where'd you dig this bozo up? Like when he just turns to Jafar. So I think it's cool how, like, he has to put up a front, like, when he's with other people, acting like as, like, a parrot, like a regular parrot, whatever. And then, like, when he just turns to Jafar, like, his little asides with Jafar, that with Jafar he has, like, the full conversations and everything. And I remember I kind of pondered this when I discussed Aladdin back, like, this was back in 2019 now. So I remember wondering, Aladdin and Abu too, but how did Jafar and Iago meet? I just found that something interesting to think about, because as far as I know, there's no origin story with that. And just, like, I don't know. I just find that interesting, but to wonder. But also the whole thing with Iago is that in the sequel, The Return of Jafar, I only learned this recently too, that first off, The Return of Jafar is the very first direct-to-video Disney sequel, and it did so well that then they produced more for other Disney movies, but it's apparently sold over 1.5 million copies within its first 2 days of release, so that's huge. And this was another movie I would watch a lot when I was younger, but I never obviously loved it as much as the original. Because, like, with that one, like, it's obviously a downgrade in the animation, and also Robin Williams had left. They replaced Genie with Dan Castellaneta for that movie, but then he returned for the third movie, the, whatever, Aladdin, King of Thieves. But with that movie, though, with Return of Jafar, what I didn't know is that it actually served as a pilot for Aladdin the series. And Aladdin the series ran from 94 to 95. And I remember this, like, I've mentioned this as well when I discussed Aladdin, but actually, if you go back and listen to my episode discussing Aladdin, I've since condensed it a lot because there was a lot of dead air, and that's what I was still getting used to podcasting. So it's much more listenable now. But I've cut this out too, that when I talked about briefly, I talked about, like, I went on a tangent about Aladdin the series and like the sequel, and I cut all that out because I was like, it's irrelevant, whatever. But what I mentioned was that the one thing I remember from Aladdin the series is Iago and Abu sleeping, and then Iago saying, "What did you say about my mother?" And I tried to find the clip. I couldn't find it. I would just, oh my God, it's like the one thing that stuck in my memory from watching it at my grandma's house years ago, because I didn't have Disney Channel growing up. So, like, she had satellite TV. So, like, that was the one time I remember watching Aladdin the show. And, like, it's too funny. Oh my goodness. But anyway, so it's just like the random one Iago line that's stuck in my memory for all these years. But anyway, with Return of Jafar, so that the whole thing was that they wanted Iago to be part of the group. They wanted Iago to be part of the series. So in order to do that, they had to do a redemption arc for Iago. And that movie really is, though it's called The Return of Jafar, it really is all about Iago's story, and Iago like kind of realizing he doesn't want to be a villain anymore. He doesn't want to be like second hands to Jafar anymore. He wants to be on his own. So like the beginning is him escaping the lamp, because as we know, Aladdin ends with like him and Jafar, like, Genie just flicking them into like the desert. And so then like he's in the lamp, he escapes, and he sings that song, "I'm looking out for me," and he's all on his own. And then he wants to like be part of the palace and like befriend everyone and like show that he's going to be good from now on, but then he has to earn their trust. And so he ends up saving Aladdin, and also he helps Aladdin and Jasmine get back together when like they have a fight, and he sings that song "Forget About Love" as like a reverse psychology thing to get her to realize, like, that that's the love of her life, that she can't throw that all away. So that's cool that he has that redemption arc, and that they loved Iago so much they wanted to incorporate him into the show, even though he's still like an anti-hero, and still his brash, obnoxious self. And there was another clip I had just watched now where Iago, like, they do a thing where he has, like, he turns into Gilbert Gottfried himself, like, has Gilbert's face, and he's like making fun of himself, like all these beady eyes, like whatever. So, oh my goodness. So the show seems interesting. I don't know. It seems, but again, it has like that very like not great animation, but like it's too funny. It's not on Disney Plus though at the moment. Maybe eventually it will be available on Disney Plus, but for now it's still not. But that's the main thing with The Return of Jafar, that it's Iago's redemption arc. So that's cool too. And then with him and Jafar, what I will say about them is that, in my opinion, there's no other iconic Disney villain duo besides them. They're like the number one, with like, I can't think of any others even off the top of my head with other iconic Disney villain duos. They're just like the best because they're just so hilarious. Like, you got Iago with all of like his crazy rants, and then Jafar being like, patience, Iago, patience, like, that stuff. And then I do also love the fact that Iago's the one that comes up with the plan to, it's like, what if you were the chump husband, and then like, like you marry the princess and then you become sultan. And then Jafar says that great line, "I love the way your foul little mind works," which, because it's great because it's like, double meaning of foul, like Foul, bad, and foul, like Fowl, like a bird, the wordplay, it's great. And then, then we'll throw Papa-in-law and the little woman off a cliff. Like, it's so funny. So there's so much slapstick with Iago. And apparently what's funny is that they had like a rule, like, when in doubt, hurt the parrot. So that's so funny. So that's why Iago gets so hurt so much throughout the movie. And he really does, like with Jafar too, like when Jafar kicks him, oh, that hurt. I loved that part too as a kid. Like after Jafar says that whole thing, like, death by beheading. And then Jasmine says, "How could you?" and runs out. And then like Iago's coughing and hacking, and then he just lands back on Jafar's shoulder saying, "So, how did it go? I think she took it rather well." And like, oh gosh, it's so funny. So I always love moments where, I've always said this, like moments where a brash character is quiet for a second, stuff like that, because it's just so funny. But, Iago isn't Iago without Gilbert Gottfried with his amazing, role, like just so amazing in the role. It's just fantastic. And oh my gosh. Because also another part I love with Iago in the original Aladdin, like I've mentioned this too and I discussed it, that when he's like pretending to be Jasmine, and then Aladdin leaves, and then like the penguin, oh my goodness, the flamingo is like looking at Iago, and then Iago just says, "You got a problem, Pinky?" Jerk. Like a little jerk. It's so funny too. And he takes the lamp and he's like, "Oh, Jafar's gonna be happy to see you." And he's like impersonating Jafar. Like, "Excellent work, Iago." "Oh, really?" "No, really, on a scale of 1 to 10, you are an 11. "Oh, Jafar, I'm embarrassed. I'm blushing." Like, yeah, goodness. He's just so hilarious, and like every single line is so funny, like him squawking everything. "I think that I have a heart attack and die over that surprise." Like, we got a big, and like when Jafar just closes his beak. So like they just play off so well with each other. Then like later when he's like, "Oh God, he's cracked, he's got nuts. Jafar, get a grip. Good grip." There's also that great line in the beginning when he's on his angry rant and he's pulling out his feathers and he's like coming out of the sand, "I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. We're never gonna get a hold of that stupid lamp. Look at this. I'm so ticked off that I'm molting." Poor Iago, he really gets the brunt of all the pain and all like the physical comedy of it all. It's just so hilarious. But that's just what's so great. It's like when he plants that idea in Jafar's head, and it's so great. And then also like when Jafar does become Sultan later on, like toward the end, and then like when Iago has like a little hat too, and then like saying like to bow down to him, and then Jasmine says, "We will never bow to you," and then Iago says, "Why am I not surprised?" Him and his sarcasm is so good too. And of course there's also the part like when Jafar is disguised, and then Iago says, "Jafar, can you hurry it up? I'm dying in here." So like just the fact that he gets to be his true self with Jafar. But then obviously in the series he's like I think he interacts a lot with, I'm sure with Genie too, but with Abu a lot. Like he's like the two animal sidekicks, so it's too funny. And I think what's also amazing is that Gilbert Gottfried voiced Iago in every iteration of Aladdin, except for the live action remake, which we don't have to talk about that, but like in the original and all the sequels in video games, so that's really, really cool. In the series, of course. So I think that's really cool. And gosh, just kind of every line from Iago is hilarious. I'm realizing it's just too amazing. Goodness. So he's an amazing character. This role, will live on forever. And I do also love when he's like, "Squeeze him, Jafar. Squeeze him like a like then when Genie just like smacks him away. Oh my goodness. Just every single thing is hilarious. Oh my God. Gosh. And then like when he smacks into the wall, then like when he falls, then it's like Sultan on the carpet, like the little versions of him spinning around and around. So hilarious. My God, I'm just like recalling every single Iago moment now, but they're all fantastic. So here's to Gilbert Gottfried. Thank you for all the laughs. Rest in peace. And we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out. I gotta start packing, Your Highness. Only essentials. We gotta travel light. Bring the guns, the weapons, the knives, and how about this picture? I don't know. I think I'm making a weird face in it. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to visit storytellingsaga.com for all places to listen and where to follow on social media. And as always, feel free to follow me on... Oh, wait. I'm messing up. I'm rusty. This is what happens when I'm taking a break. And as always, feel free to send me any writing prompts, questions, comments by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Again, I am on hiatus. I will be returning to discuss the Bob's Burgers movie. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise! We gotta get out of here. We gotta get out. I gotta start packing, Your Highness. Only essential. We gotta travel light. Bring the guns, the weapons, the knives. And how about this picture? I don't know. I think I'm making a weird face in it. Oh, boy. He's cracked. He's gone nuts. Jafar! Jafar! Get a grip! Good grip. You got a problem, Pinky? Jerk. boy, Jafar's gonna be happy to see you.
Excellent work, Iago.
Go on.
No, really, on a scale of 1 to 10, you are an 11.
Oh, Jafar, you're too kind. I'm embarrassed. I'm blushing. Squeeze him, Jafar. Squeeze him like a... Ah!